we had it. People elect officials, but the powers of those officials, the powers of government are strictly limited. They will have no right to initiate force or compulsion against any citizen except a criminal. Those who have initiated force will be punished by force, and that is the only proper function of government. What we would not permit is the government to initiate force against people who have hurt no one, who have not forced anyone. We will not give the government or the majority or any minority the right to take the life or the property of others. That was the original American system.
When you say take the property of others, I imagine that you're talking now about taxes.
I am.
And you believe that there should be no right by the government to tax. You believe that there should be no such thing as welfare legislation, unemployment compensation, regulation during times of stress, certain kinds of rent controls and things like that.
That's right. I'm opposed to all forms of control. I am for an absolute, laissez-faire, free, unregulated economy. Let me put it briefly. I'm for the separation of state and economics, just as we had separation of state and church, which led to peaceful coexistence among different religions after a period of religious wars. So the same applies to economics. If you separate the government from economics, if you do not regulate production and trade, you will have peaceful cooperation and harmony and justice among men.
You are certainly enough of a political scientist to know that certain movements spring up in reaction to other movements. The labor movement, for instance, certain social welfare legislation. This did not spring full-blown from somebody's head, out of a vacuum. This was a reaction to certain abuses that were going on. Isn't that true, Anne?
Not always. It actually sprang up from the same source as the abuses. If by abuses you mean the legislation, which originally had been established to help industrialists, which was already a breach of complete free enterprise. If then, in reaction, labor leaders get together to initiate legislation to help labor, that is only acting on the same principle, namely, all parties agreeing that it is proper for the state to legislate in favor of one economic group or another. But what I'm saying is that nobody should have the right, neither employers nor employees, to use state compulsion and force.
But when you advocate completely unregulated economic life in which every man works for his own profit, you are asking, in a sense, for a devil-take-the-hindmost, dog-eat-dog society, and one of the main reasons for the growth of government controls was to fight the robber barons, to fight laissez-faire, in which the very people whom you admire the most, the hard-headed industrialists, the successful men, perverted the use of their power. Is that not true?
No, it isn't. This country was made not by robber barons, but by independent men, by industrialists who succeeded on sheer ability.
And
By ability, I mean without political force, help, or compulsion. But at the same time, there were men, industrialists, who did use government power as a club to help them against competitors. They were the original collectivists. Today, the liberals believe that that same compulsion should be used against the industrialists for the sake of workers. But the basic principle there is, should there be any compulsion? And the regulations are creating robber barons. They are creating capitalists with government help, which is the worst of all economic phenomena.
I think that you will agree with me when I say that you do not have a good deal of respect for the society in which you and I currently live. You think that we're going downhill fairly fast. Now, I would like you to think about this question, and you'll have a minute intermission to ponder it, and then come back and answer. Do you predict dictatorship and economic disaster for the United States if we continue on our present course? Do you? And we'll get Ayn Rand's answer in just a moment.
I just wanted to show you that clip because, let me get my microphone. I just wanted to show you that clip because look at the date. She's talking about America, but what's happening anyway? What's happening now? That's exactly what's happening now, isn't it? Because it's preordained. It's not by accident. These people have got a plan, and they've been implemented incrementally over a certain period of time. In my opinion, I mean, when you get a bit more into your histories, you'll understand that wars are created as well. And the Second World War was created to disenfranchise the people of this country and the people of Europe in particular through that was a big false flag, so to speak, okay? When England needs to be rebuilt, because even Hitler didn't bomb certain historical sites, they were all intact, but the places that needed to be rebuilt, or the places that were prime land, so to speak, were decimated, okay? So, while that was going on, I mean, Andy, I think he picked this book up for about £2. It's the Universal Home Lawyer. One of the things that I want to get onto is what do we do about all of this? Right? Where is the remedy? And one of the things that I think you're going to need to utilise more and more is the written word, not the PC, but the written word, and the art of letter writing. If you looked at, we go back to the war again, and you looked at the correspondence between the soldiers and the sweethearts and the families, you'll see that these people were very, very well educated, a very good command of the English language. They knew what words meant, they knew how to express themselves, they always qualified their signatures as well. They didn't sign any documents without qualifying their signature. Some of you in the room are old enough to remember that. You remember your grandparents doing it. Yeah. Slowly, through this education system, all the important defences that you need to conduct your life in private, to keep the public away. When you're outside the house, there is a social contract that we all adhere to, which is unwritten. These are things which are just common courtesy. You know, I'm not going to say hello by punching you in the jaw or all these things that you instinctually understand. But this social contract has been spread out to, we write a piece of legislation and you adopt your movements accordingly. That changes your life accordingly. What we think becomes your reality. And when you don't do what we perceive as reality, then we're gonna fall into the realm of offences and all these different things. Now, I'm going to pass this book around because there's a handwritten note in here, and the wording that he uses, the guy is just a landlord and he's rented out a property to someone. This book was published in 1949, and the tenancy agreement has come to an end. So, while I'm giving the presentation, it's only an 8-line thing. You can have a little read of it and just pass it on, so you get an idea of what's slowly been eroded away. All right. Now, I'll get onto those solutions a bit later and start to show you how to correspond with these people from the status of a man and not a fiction. And there's certain things that we need to do to achieve that. One of the things is that you may not be aware of is that this westernized system is capitalist. It's a capitalist system. To capitalize means to take advantage of. So who are they taking advantage of? Is it a set of circumstances, or is it a set of circumstances and people? Is it a mentality which they've purposely created to weaken your status, so you don't really know who you are, and then you start putting your name to signatures, you're not qualifying, handing over powers of attorney to people who are dishonest. Now, let's get back to the legislation. How many people here have heard of Sarah Lioness? Okay. Right. I don't particularly agree with Sarah. I've got one of her Lioness law cards because I registered that when she first started. It was a good idea. because one of the things that she says is that all of us, this free man thing, we say, well, no, we don't consent, and I'm not interested in that, I don't consent. So, but they're being dragged into the car, they're being, trunked and welts, or whatever the case is, anyway, right? So, her barrister friend said to her that in law, you need to develop, in legalese, you need to develop a legal argument. So first you must ascertain whether consent is required before you know that it's, you're not going to consent to it, right? Which is pretty logical. She's moving on from that, and I think that what she's come up with at the moment is basically all I'm trying to say today, because once you understand how to decipher reality using logic, then you can make your own decisions from a better standpoint. If you've been derived of logic, it's much harder for you to perceive reality for what it really is, and therefore deal with it accordingly. Now, she was, I don't know if you know Sarah's story, but what happened in brief was she was out with a few friends and they were in the back of a car. The police wanted them all to get out, they wouldn't get out, and she got maced with pepper spray in, I think it was her left eye. And that got infected, she had to have an operation. She's diligent, she's a bit like Si, a good friend of mine as well, Si Spaniard. Now these people, once they've got the bone, they don't let go, right? So while she was receiving disability benefit for this injury, the council wrote to her saying that because she's on benefit, her contribution towards the council tax was £22 a month or whatever it was. It was a robo-signed computer, so I don't know how many of you actually react to a letter, let's just say correspondence, that's been pumped out by a computer. Remember, no one has written to you. You are a living entity, you're a living being, right? And the inanimate object has been programmed to spit paperwork out with your scuba suit name on. And you see that as reality. They land on your door on a Friday, it's all timed, so you're thinking about that consciously over the weekend. So, I've got to put this money away because I've got this direct debit coming out. And they're always coming into your life somewhere along the line, subconsciously, on a conscious level. Yeah? So they're making you believe that you need to worry about this. And it all stems back to the word you that we spoke about before. They're not even writing to you. You need to know the status that you're at, and you can deflect these things. Okay? So after she ignored about 2 or 3 of these robo signs, she gets this letter saying, right, now you've lost your rights to pay in instalments. We now want £285 within 7 days, otherwise we're taking you to court. That's all Sarah needs. Bring it to her, she'll bring it to you. Right? So she's going from the perspective of you've got to be in it to win it. So she learns legally, she's on a law course at the moment. And she's very successful because she's had 10 appeals and she's won all 10 appeals in representing other people. Now in reference to this scenario is a lesson in logic. Her legal argument was, if the government has decided and worked out mathematically the minimum amount of money that I need to survive, if you ask me to give you some of that, what's going to happen to me? I'm not going to be able to eat, and then the inevitable happens, I die. She wrote that legal argument in. She didn't get a letter back, she got a phone call from the legal department asking what she wanted, and they didn't mean to upset her. Now if you understand the power of that argument, people throwing themselves on the juggernauts for this bedroom tax and all the rest of it, people don't question anything. The government writes legislation, you can't just about survive already, and then they're throwing something else on you that you believe that you're obligated to. If you believe it in your mind, it's real. We're both living in the same time and space. You believe that, I don't. It affects you. It doesn't affect me. Because what you believe is a reality. Everything I say is a lie unless you believe it's true. So, I think that's enough about that. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that even in the legalese system, if you employ logic because they don't want you to do that, then you can even maneuver and negotiate yourself around the legal system. Because within the legal system, if you know what the statutes are, remember what I said earlier on, statutes are about holding them to account. They're nothing to do with you. They're in reference to public servants, people who work for the government. If you're driving or whatever, that is a job that they've decided you are, a role that you're going to play. If you're a resident, you're working for a government, because residents are holding office of the UK Limited. UK Limited is a limited company. Do you live in the UK? Well, that's impossible. UK is a piece of paper on a company's house, and you can't live in anything anyway. Can you live in a tree? Can we meet in the tree or at the tree? Can we meet in the court or at the court? Yeah? So they're using words that when you reply to them, they just think, well, this guy's a bit, even though they've indoctrinated you that way, it's your fault that you don't know the rules. That's their justification. Let him who wishes to be deceived, Roman maxim. So let's start using some of these Roman maxims in our favour, because he who does not understand is not present in the court. You're under no obligation to understand legalese. You're under no obligation to have a solicitor. You're under no obligation to seek legal advice. So my approach would be to understand what was the law that they covered over the top with the Sea of Commerce, this legalese. What did it used to be? What were the people doing 5 and 6 generations ago, before all these grimoires and barristers and whatever? Because when the colonies were settled in America, barristers and grimoires were the lowest form of society. They were kicked out. They weren't allowed to even be in the country. Now, because of all this legislation and whatever, they've wiggled their way back in. Instead of being the bottom of society, they're the top. And the biggest parasites out, because all they can do is live off causing controversy. Me and my wife are having a divorce. If I was foolish enough to get married under a license from them anyway, it means there's 3 people in the marriage, me, my wife and the government. So if that happened now, if there was a man and wife separation or whatever, it could be amicable under common law, because you could say, well, we wish to part, we don't need any third-party intervention. Myself and my wife sign a contract to say that we renege our signatures or revoke that contract, including the marriage certificate and the marriage license. Well, that marriage is over. And then you decide on how you most amicably can split up the dividends or whatever's been worked for. But as soon as these bar associate members come into play, then your wife is the most evil woman on the planet, and the husband is the most evil woman on the planet, and then you cause controversy, and when there's no more money left, then you're all left to your own devices anyway. Where's the... Right, so what do we do with this information now? As you can see, I've got uncommon law on my top. Now, uncommon law is a concept that it was developed by a gentleman called Carl Lintz. If you've got the opportunity, write that name down, Carl Lintz.
Spell it out with a K or is it?
Yeah, it's spelled with a K, and his last name is Lentz. Carl is his father's German. His father didn't speak very much English, which is why he's got an advantage over us, because he didn't understand half the things that was happening to him. So therefore, they couldn't have any effects, right? But he taught Carl common law, proper common law, and then the authorities in America took Carl's child away from the hospital with no contract. And it took him 8 years to get his child back, and they're pooping themselves at the moment now, because he knows what he's talking about and he knows how to hold him to account. Okay? So, just before Carl came on the internet, which was maybe about 8 months ago, we've been in constant correspondence really. I'm going to bring Carl over to the UK, hopefully sometime soon. And we're going to develop something where we're going to start inviting people along to actually learn how to write back and forth and correspond with these people, actually learn how to navigate your rights. Now, a simple concept would be, and this is another mindset, you're in contact with a police officer, and for whatever reason, you're going for a journey in the back of the car, right? So the guy says to you, you have the right to remain silent, anything you do say can and will be used against you, blah, blah, blah. Right? So there's quite a few things happening with that statement. For one, the copper believes that he can give you rights, okay? Well, that's his fantasy, because you can't give me any rights and you can't take them away, but you can trespass on them, which is what he's doing, right? So when you trespass on my rights, whether you know that you're doing it or not, which you should do, because you've taken an oath as a peace officer, not a police officer, and you've taken an oath to protect my unalienable rights without favour. So under common law. So when you start to implement statutes, then you're outside of your jurisdiction and you're not covered under your bond or your insurance. And when you start going for these people's insurance, they'll be sitting at a desk if they're allowed back at work anyway. Because if you've got no insurance, you can't be a police officer. So if they think that they can take your rights away, then this real life game of Monopoly, let's play. Because I'll teach you how to take what his grandma left him. Okay? So he won't mess with you again. Alright. There's another gentleman called Peter of England. Has anyone heard of Peter of England? Yeah. Okay. Have you seen the motor video? Because I'm going to play it now, where he's claimed his right to travel. Yeah. Has anyone seen that before? Okay. So this is quite an old video, and when we saw this video, I was with Martin and Mal in Cheltenham, and we were discussing it, and I was very impressed. I ended up contacting him. He's in the south of France at the moment. He's registered the common law court, which we're going to be working with IMID and UnKommonlaw. So we're going to record things, not register things. We're going to record things, and by doing that, that's going to benefit you in many ways that I won't go into right now. Right? But Peter claimed his right to travel, and he's quite conspicuous because he drives around in a big camper van with Peter of England on the registration, right? So he's not hiding from anyone. So he, sooner or later, is going to come into contact with some form of authority. In this particular case, police. So I might pause it every now and again because he might say something significant, but remember the meaning of May earlier on? Do you recall that, yeah? Okay. So I'm going to play this clip. How can we enforce our private status?
Just, do you want to turn it up a bit?
No, on the other side.
That's fine.
Hello there.
What for? Are you going to park tonight?
Possibly so.
How long for?
Maybe the whole night.
What, is there an issue with the van?
Nope.
Tell me why you're not displaying your registration plate.
Of July. Form 44. Sorry, I've 7 upon 26 of the 44 constabularies of the United Kingdom. Yes. So what I'm basically saying, gentlemen, this is out of your jurisdiction. It's out of your jurisdiction and under the understanding that, how could I say, if you now accept what's called voluntary acceptance of responsibility from your actions here on in, okay, under a most valid case under what's called Headley, Byrne and Heller in, I think, 1873, there are a series of common law procedures that I'll initiate against you as individuals. That means that your badge of rank or your uniform is of no protection whatsoever. Those charges will revolve around breach of duty of care towards me, negligent misstatement of the law, abuse of process, abuse of mine inalienable rights. They will then run through from malicious prosecution after extensive warning to the contrary, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and sort of deceit. So it's either you call this in now to your chief constable, and then he will give you probably a recommendation on how to proceed, or from here on in, I notice or give you full and fair warning that these fee schedules will be imposed upon you in the High Court of the Queen's Bench Division, and that could mean the forfeiture of either your pay or any other privileges you have. I'm not saying any more to you. Read that and call it in. Do you have a guy called Simon Bransford? Maybe you want to have a word with Simon Bransford? Okay. Well, maybe if this goes on a little bit longer, if this goes on a little bit longer, then you'll be, or your chief constable will be phoning the Attorney General or Sir Kenneth Clarke, the Lord High Chancellor. Pardon? No, I mean if we carry on with our discussion. So, as far as I'm concerned now, our discussion is over. You can do whatever you want, sir, yeah. Okay.
So this vehicle is parked.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a case of public access, but it's not parking a local estate.
Thank you. You haven't? Okay.
His concern is, how long are you going to be here? Are you intending to second residence, or are you going to be moving on in the morning?
Okay, well let's just say, for now, for your benefit, thank you gentlemen, I'll be moving on in the morning. Just to qualify, this land belongs to the borough and the corporation of Newcastle on the Lyme. Borough and corporation. That means it's a corporate entity under any sort of law, statute law or common. Then it's public access, so it's public land. It's actually owned by the Burgesses. There's 24 of them. They have a trust. They own places like Morrison's car park, the comprehensive areas of land here. So it's public land. So I'm invoking my right as a free man under common law to park where I wish and travel where I wish. In addition to that, if you wanted to play the statute one, I'd suggest you invoke then a section 21 under the Landlord and Tenant Act to have us evicted from here, but that will have to go through due process through the courts. Okay, well, we're not actually we're not trespassing. Probably till tomorrow morning when we move off. And then the next... Yeah, okay. Because this vehicle is my property, it does not belong to the corporation known as the DVLA. Simon C, or TSE, has been informed that he was illegally registering this vehicle and also informing other parties, corporate entities, that are not sui juris flesh and blood individuals, therefore have no right under common law, of my previous plated whereabouts. So Mr. C, the Chief Executive, and the Deputy Transport Minister, or the Transport Minister, were informed that this vehicle was being deregistered, but re-recorded as me, Peter of England, also family name, Peter of England, was being recorded in my name. So that's why there's no registration plate. There'll be no registration plate. Okay, right, well there's nothing more to be said. I don't need a license to drive on the road. It's my free right under the common law to drive my vehicle as long as I'm not engaging in commerce on a public highway. Now, if you gentlemen would like to wait for me to pull off here tomorrow morning,
I'm not going to be staying here all night.
no, but maybe one of your colleagues would like to,
I think that's going to happen.
then we'd have a freer and fairer run-in. But at the moment, unfortunately, you are batting on a very, very poor wicket because you've got no, you can't, even if it wasn't taxed and wasn't displaying tax, which it isn't, without the plates on, without insurance, you still can't do anything because I'm not on the public highway. Public access land. Okay. Okay, well,
What we're going to do is, I've just spoke to a supervisor, so
Yeah.
get a pocket to them.
excellent.
I won't confess, I don't know all about these laws and
No.
statutes, and I'm not going
Of
to
course you
say
don't.
what the supervisor, the procedure there.
Excellent. Good. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll be speaking to you in a moment.
And they are just doing the job. So that many homes for family.
Yeah, there's a few things happening there because, like I said before, the general police officer does not know anything really, very basic. And the main thing that he's told is that he's got jurisdiction over you, and there's nothing that you can say to make him believe otherwise. Okay? Now, one of the reasons why I ended up calling Peter is because we've got a running joke, me and Martin now. And I'll call it the James Cagney Sydney Ryan Rice. So these three men are driving around with all these documents, you know, thick like the yellow pages. They get pulled over, talking through a little gap in the window. Nah, I ain't coming out, see, I ain't getting out, you know what I mean? And then they call it more backup and everything, and the situation just escalates. And when you move with honour and you know what your rights are, there's no need to do any of that. Wind your window down, you can get out of the car if you want to. I wouldn't suggest you get out of the car, but you don't need to talk through a crack in the window if you know who you are. And anything that they do, they're liable for, as Peter's quite eloquently explained. So, I don't want to be in a position where, with the knowledge that I could potentially share, you end up driving, I don't need no insurance, you know what I mean? I'll drive around, I'm a man, I can go anywhere I want, you know what I mean? And you run over my child, yeah? And you understand common law, and as long as you come to me to make amends within what you can afford, okay, I know I crippled your child, but you know, I'm crack or whatever, you know what I mean? I'll pay you £1 a month for the next 10 trillion years. Well, that's not good, because you need to walk with honour. If you're going to start to use these rights and start to implement these rights, then, you know, common sense allows, if there's a stretch of motorway or whatever, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, fine, but don't be doing 45 miles an hour past the school because you believe you've got some kind of a right. Yeah? Now, the social contract comes back again. Now, I don't mind helping people out who want to take control of their own private affairs back again and don't want to be some kind of tax collector's dummy who just dips their hand in the pocket every time someone says, well, I've got a badge, is that your property, give me it. Oh yeah, of course, yeah, you can have it. No,
That is mine.
oh, it's mine now. Possession and all that. So yeah, so there is a lot to it, but it's very, very simple, because once you stand in the capacity of a man, then, and you know that this police officer is looking for the scuba suit, even though he's parked up in a camper van, he's not doing anything. They're still looking for the scuba suit. Yeah? He's not even wearing it. Okay. This is the conclusion to it. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is because it's a waste of time coming up with all these different theories. What I'm trying to show you is reality, as long as you know what the law is. I don't think there's a clip on the internet where people are driving around travelling and they have a conclusion like this. So let's play the rest of the clip, and then if there's any questions later, obviously I don't know how much time we've got, but I'll answer as many as I can. All right.
You can have a little bit of
So, second police coming. They're discussing.
Come for backup.
To inspector level now. To inspector. I think he's just saying escalate up to inspector.
It's like the police working for the industrial estate owner, isn't it? We're clearing up the mess.
Especially when no one owns anything anyway.
No, okay, I'm quite happy.
Enterprise zone, you probably have.
Yeah, if you need to close it, you can close it, close it.
Yeah, there's a pensioner with a knowledge of the law. Let's get him.
Peter's actually passed us into the living room.
Is it?
I'll be after his before
Colin.
it's the last.
Oh, pardon. Sorry. Can you just notice?
It'll still keep.
Okay. I'm sorry. I could have let me get forward. Just can't see anything at that light.
Yeah.
Lighting.
I don't know.
See.
I don't think so.
Can we go along to the part where they come back? There's quite a bit of an interval there, isn't there? Is he coming?
I'm not inside the market, you're right.
3 minutes.
You right? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, my friend.
You're right, my name's Sergeant Marco, you're right. Okay, what's your name, please?
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
That's Karen.
Karen, and your name, sir?
My name's Peter.
Peter. Okay. Peter, obviously I've been called here by my colleagues,
Yeah.
all right, as a supervising officer for this area, okay, in regards to their concerns or the reason why they've attended to speak to you. My understanding is that they've had, they've had a call, basically, from a member, I believe it's somebody that owns one of these properties. Now, one of these properties has had quite a lot of criminal incidents that have occurred. So they've obviously got concerns for people around. Which is why I'm asking.
Okay.
I've obviously come to speak to you to basically ask you what is this.
Okay.
Which I think is a reasonable thing to ask,
I agree.
considering what's been going on.
I agree.
Okay? They have been concerned by the fact that you're not displaying any registration on the front of your vehicle. I don't know about the wheel of your vehicle, because that's it.
Same plate on the back as on the front.
Okay, right. And in regards to something to do with the tax, please.
The tax this, the plate this way.
Right, okay.
And for your information,
Well,
no insurance.
right.
Okay.
Okay, right. The way I look at this at this moment in time is, whilst you're parked here, I have no issue with you being parked here. If you wish to stay here for the evening, I can't see anything that you, at this moment in time, where any offences are being committed. Okay? So, at this stage, I'm quite happy with the way things are. What I am raising with yourself is, Please don't take this in any way to be derogatory to yourself or anybody else. But my concern is that you may be committing offences if you decide to drive this vehicle without a registration display on the front and rear of the vehicle on the road.
Yeah.
Okay? And that if you've made that choice to drive on the road, and somebody does stop you, you may be committing offences for which you may either be reported for summons in regards to it, or issued with a fixed penalty notice in regards to those matters. At the moment, I'm satisfied. You being here, I've got no problem.
Okay.
But obviously I need to make you aware of that. That's your choice. How you then decide to drive this vehicle if you wish to drive it, or what manner in which you're going to drive that vehicle.
A very intelligent and courteous response, which I thank you for, and I love your use of the word may, which is very judiciously selected, I'm sure. But thank you very much. So you'll get to hear a lot more of the. Do you know a chap called DC Ian Emmons?
Yes.
Hanley.
Yeah. Yes, no.
Just telling you that, Peter.
Okay, no problem at all. No problem.
Enlighten you on some of the background stuff that's going on.
That's no problem. That's no issue to me.
Sorry, what was your first name again?
Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
No problem at all. Enjoy your evening.
All right.
Obviously, if you do have any issues where people do come and cause you any problems, please contact yourselves. Obviously, we'll deal with those matters. Obviously, if you do this
Speed
I
dial.
don't think that anybody's anyway casting aspersions on anybody individually, but we've got to make sure that everything's safe and everything's in order. Okay.
Excellent, Mark.
Right. Thank you
I
very
wish
much.
you a good night.
Good night.
You're not spoiling my evening. This is what I'm here to do.
All right. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
What happens the next morning?
Next morning, fine. No one ever troubled him. He's
No,
not even-
but no insurance. How can I get away from having no insurance?
National
Is
insurance.
in his private capacity. He's not operating commercially.
Oh, what about having an insurance for a car, which might cause an accident?
Yeah.
You should have some sort of car insurance.
Why do you believe that he needs car insurance?
Because if he causes an accident, the other people need the money from his insurance company, which doesn't exist, to pay for their repairs.
Okay, so the insurance company that you're paying the money to at the moment, when you hit someone, where does the money come from that the insurance is paying out? Where do you believe it comes from?
So many people pay into that insurance company, not just me.
Okay. Normally, with most insurance companies in the westernised world, for every £100 they collect, they pay out £21. Okay? Now, when you make a claim, because on your insurance documents, you've handed them power of attorney, they're using your escrow account to pay for the accident. They're using your money.
Does anyone know this? That also applies to mortgages as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And no insurance is actually sold lawfully in this country.
What else? I gave the analogy of the stranded on the island, remember?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got all these natural resources that are generating money called GDP for the country. Yeah? Now, foreigners pay tax because they're coming into our so-called land and they're coming here to work and benefit from the society that we've created, so they pay tax. Corporations pay tax, well they used to until these lot came in, that with the imports that they bring into the country, they pay a duty on that, and then they pay a tax or a dividend to the shareholders of the United Kingdom. Who do you think the shareholders of the company are? Who are the shareholders? You and I?